You're listening to Cannonball Mindset, a podcast dedicated to helping people achieve the most out of their personal and professional lives. The Cannonball Mindset challenges you to step out of your comfort zone and lean into the possibility of having a life of abundance. Disruptors, innovators, and groundbreakers are all welcome. Let's get into the show.
Welcome back to the Cannonball Mindset. I am Chad Sanschagrin, and today I get to sit with a great friend and really I don't know, I'm trying to figure out the right word, but the brains, the whisperer, the thing that makes great athletes go. And that's my good friend, Matt O'Keefe. Matt, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide. So
yes.
I met Matt. We have kids at Alabama together. My first interaction with Matt was I was at a CrossFit workout. I was dying next to him. He was working out without even breathing heavy. I was dying. And he came over and gave me a little tip. And he said, "You're going to break your elbows and probably hit yourself in the head with the bar if you don't move your fingers this way. Try that." And I was like, who is this guy? And why is he giving me coaching in the middle of a workout, right? Because you're killing it, clearly killing it. And I was like, okay, I'm doing it. I'm take all the coaching I can get. And I was like, oh, this is easier. This is better.
Not a coach, but been around long enough to know. I hope I was somewhat nice and professional about it.
You were awesome. Because I was dying.
Yeah.
And remember,
most people are in a CrossFit gym in the middle of a workout. So
I was with Evan Slaughter and Adam, my good friend Adam, and we were all working out. Right. And from there, built a great relationship. And the more I learned about you, and we were having this conversation offline, but the more I've learned about you, you kind of are the person behind the scenes that makes everything tick. How did you get to that part? I'm saying, obviously, you're the CEO of Hard Work Pays Off, very elite position of the most elite athletes in the games. How did it get there? How did you get there?
Yeah, I think that my passion was to be in that position, honestly. My first passion was athletics. I played sports in university. I played football and baseball at Boston College for short periods of time, both. So I grew up wanting to be a professional athlete, and I was very attracted to, one of my favorite movies is Jerry Maguire. Right?
Yeah.
So I was really attracted to the business side in the whole sport ecosystem. And I saw, obviously my athletic career was over, and that was my opportunity to be involved in sport, which is my passion. And it isn't, in general, when I look at my roles in other business units that I was a part of, it isn't about me. I always wanted to be someone, I worked for my dad. I wanted to make sure that he looked really good, and our business was super successful, and everybody, knew their roles and had all the tools to be the best at them. And this was just that next evolution of that, being sort of behind the scenes. I think some people have problems with that, not necessarily a credit-based role. I thrive in it. I just really loved, and it started with my passion for Matt. I wanted him to be able to get everything he wanted out of his career. And that turned into more, that passion expanded into all athletes being able to really realize, compensation, build a life around their athletics through this sport that was thriving financially, but not a lot of it was filtering down to them. So honestly, I love that aspect of any business, never mind sport, just being someone that can, really help people be their best, pursue their hopes and dreams. Businesses thrive from behind the scenes.
Yeah, you said something which is really, it never dawned on me in my 50 years on this earth. Obviously, I'm out in the public eye as far as what I do in the corporate training realm. But you said that you are okay not being in the public eye, and you're good with that. You're good with being that guy behind the scenes. What's that grounded in? I know you said you always you saw it with your dad, but where does that come from? At what point did you say, "I'm going to shine by making other people shine"?
Yeah, it comes from my parents. Truly, my mother very specifically. My mother was a nurse. Some of the coolest people on Mother Earth in general. Yeah. And, she just, helped people get well, never got any credit, had a huge job at a hospital, had 180 people working for her, but never talked about it, never boasted about it. Literally, you know, never got any credit for it. The doctors get the credit, right?
Yeah,
like
right.
very similar type role. So, you know, I learned a lot from her, that it was, you know, about what you did and who you did it for, you know, and, you know, and helping people. And you know, honestly, my mother was one of the coolest people that ever walked the earth. And so, you know, I'm trying to make her proud on a daily basis, you know, and I really, you know, I really enjoyed watching how she helped people thrive, and it was, you know, and I'm a lot like her. So I think that that's pretty much a lot of it for me. And, you know, it's interesting. You say like the public eye, you know, I think some people in, you know, maybe my micro space would say, well, you have a huge public profile.
Yeah, you're Matt Keefe.
You know, and, but I, you know, I don't like, it's not a pursuit of that, you know.
Yeah,
I think
it's
some
a
of that,
result of.
it's a result, you know, and I'd rather not, you know, it's really not about that. It's, you know, what we do here, what we you know, what I've done with athletes is all the same. Is I just want to help people be their best, you know. What that means to me is immaterial.
Yeah. So Matt talks about you with such reverence. Matter of fact, I have met very few people that talk about another person with such reverence as Matt Fraser talks about you.
That's cool.
He mentioned on the podcast, he mentioned at dinner last night, he mentioned during the workout, like, all things come back to Sammy and Matt O'Keefe. How did that start? Where did that relationship create? Like, how did that bond? He said, you know, Matt O'Keefe was by my side before I was Matt Fraser.
Yeah, it is fascinating. And, you know, that version of Matt was very, you know, he was curious and a step further, you know, skeptical about people in general, right? So it was a long process, which I think really is why we have the relationship we do today, because it's been built on, you know, 100% trust. You know, when I met Matt getting out of weightlifting and, you know, coming into the CrossFit space, he never had any sort of designs on like revenue or like, you know, and he learned early, like he could make a few bucks doing it, but like the idea of being, you know, a professional global profile world champion, I don't think those were things that he was focused on. And needing help in that process. And then, you know, I think worse, you know, in terms of like how we started, his parents had just had a very poor experience with an agent. So I think he just like, you know, so I think that process of him being incredibly guarded, skeptical, you know, with people in general that, you know, get involved in business, and, you know, what I needed to do, what was required of, you know, building trust with him, I think has built that beautiful relationship today, because, you know, I handled it with kid gloves. You know, I didn't say, you know, you should trust me, or like, what the, you know, what the hell, Matt, like, why is this so hard, you know, to get over the hurdle with you? I just took it day by day with him, and really, I grew to love him as a family member. I grew to, you know, really be passionate about how good I thought he could be, and then how good he was on what he could accomplish. And it just became this day-to-day purpose that Sammy and I focused on. And I think that's what you hear when you hear from him, is that, you know, we didn't, you know, leave a stone unturned for him and with him. And, you know, he got to focus on the things that he needed to do to be a world champion. And we handled a lot off the floor, essentially. Yeah. And it really was just a foundation for a beautiful relationship between the three of us, really, because we were all in on, I mean, God, what was such an unbelievably cool experience. I mean, I got to, you know, ride the wave with a man that is one of the greatest athletes of all time. So, I mean, I was having a pretty good time in the process,
right, enjoying it.
But, you know, I think part of the magic there, and I know he would say this too, is that the love we had and care for each other, and then passion for delivering for each other, helped that the greatness raise to another level, you know?
How do you, I'm awestruck by this conversation, and it has nothing to do with Matt Fraser.
Yeah.
It has to do with, how do you build that relationship with somebody that sees more in you than maybe you even see for yourself, or maybe you see it but you can't cultivate it. What does that relationship look like, and how do you continue to build on that by having tough conversations, easy conversations? Like, to me, this is why so many people don't reach the pinnacles, because they don't have a Matt O'Keefe in their corner. They don't have somebody that is going to be maybe not brutally honest, but radically candid with them, have the real tough conversations. He said you talked him out of retirement at one point.
I did,
How does somebody not Matt Frazier? How does somebody Chad Sanschagrin? How does he have that impact on somebody else? And what are the components that you think? Because it seems like you've perfected that. How does that
I think that my relationship with him, I think, then allowed that sort of relationship with others to speed up, because I mean, again, it's trust based, and his process was long. And I think, how did I technically approach that? I didn't, I sort of supported what he wanted and needed and what his dreams and hopes were and everything. And that, I think that when you really step back or step above something, it's like, it really just requires first, more than anything, that it isn't about me, and by the way, like, I think people can hear that and be like, yeah, no shit. Like, it's not about you in a situation where you're like managing. I mean, you and I can, we've probably talked about this before. It's like, there's ego in everything. I have an ego. Everybody has an ego. It's like, and it's hard to not like get credit or, reward in those things. But I don't know why I've been wired like that, or, how I was brought up. But, I learned this in business with my father, is the results that, maybe I'm seeking come from not focusing on those results.
Yeah.
And so
Focusing
I think
on the actions and behaviors.
Yeah. So, it's actions over intentions, and like, all those cliche things that are actually really true. Right. But with, how do you build that? It's,
because that's the recipe. It seems everybody wants. Everybody wants somebody in their corner, rooting for them, directing them, coaching them, picking them up when they're down, putting them back in their place when they're too high. Somebody wants that real connection. And so it seems like that's your superpower. It seems like your superpower, because everybody I talk to, and you now coach some of the best athletes in the game still.
Correct.
You are the president, the CEO of what is the mecca of all things success. That's your superpower. People want to know what is it? I'm dying to know what it is.
I mean, you have to want and love for people to be successful, and have it mean nothing to you. I mean, that is, for me, a very important component, at least to how I was successful, is that my piece of it, what I've learned is that comes a part of, being directed and passionate about somebody else that you're, in a business relationship with, or managing or helping or facilitating or coaching. But you really have to love what you do, who you do with it, what you do and who you do it with, right? I just have a really strong passion for people, meeting their goals or achieving their dreams. I don't like, maybe like there's a lot of innate stuff that I was taught through my, my upbringing that contribute to that type of stuff. But how do you build a formula to be the guy like you're describing I am? I think you just have to, you have to be willing to show up, and these are our core values here. So I won't even like get super cliche with it, but like you have to show, and people will be like, yeah, I show up. I'm like, no, like when my phone rang at 2:00 in the morning and he was upset because somebody either said something incorrect on the internet, or like, he was struggling with where he was at, and, the games were coming up, I picked the phone up, and then I think it's just, I'm willing to do the work, and I'm willing to be there at all costs for, as everybody around me at all times. And I think that sounds exhausting and not scalable. It is. You just care. There are people like, Matt's not my business partner. Matt's my best friend, and the brother I didn't have. Jason Hopper and Brooke Wells are my little kids. That I've helped raise those kids. I was representing Brooke at 18 years old, and Jason out of college, and everybody in our system. I choose to take a personal path with, and I think business is personal, and for me that works. And so that is what then grounds me in the ability to be able to do what I think I'm best at, which is really caring at and relentlessly pursuing other people's goals with them.
Yeah. And so when you start talking about goals, and how do you help them achieve those goals? How for a Matt Frazier whose goal is to be the best in the world, Brooke Wells to be the best in the world. Jason Hopper is arguably one of the fastest rising,
sure is,
like, beast.
He's there, yeah.
Absolute beast, right?
Yeah.
How do you what goes into your process if you think about like great coaches, coaches like Bill Walsh, coaches like Phil Jackson, Gene Popovich? They all had a formula. Nick Saban had a formula. What's the formula that is, Matt O'Keefe?
There's a practical piece, which all those people you described always dealt with on the front end, which is, are people good enough, right?
Yeah.
Recruiting or like, trying out for positions, so people have to, essentially have the talent and or show the work ethic, and those are really good foundational pieces to be able to then assess off of. And I truly believe, and I know this is a little pie in the sky, I believe the sky is the limit for anybody and everybody. Like, can I win the CrossFit Games? No. But that's on the practical front end of like, hey, can you do this or not?
Yeah, right.
Can Brooke Wells, Jason Hopper, Victor Hoffer, all these banners you see up here? Yes.
Yeah.
And what separates each of them is something unique to them. And what I really enjoy is understanding each of them at a deep level so that we can help them then tap into what they need to improve the things that are holding them back from being where they want to be.
How much of that is skill based versus mental?
I would argue that it is predominantly mental. It's not 100%, but it's in the high, 70 to 85s.
Yeah.
You look at what we do for a sport, and it's such a physically demanding sport. But which really draws people away from the mental side. But think about the mental side of like, going dark and being in pain all the time and having to push your limits past where your mind wants it to go.
Yeah.
I mean, it is. I'm a big golfer. Like, I would put it up there as mental as golf, you know? So that's where a lot of the work goes. Like when I look at every one of these people and the people that you're naming, Matt included, the barrier that they broke to get where they wanted to on every step along the way was mental. With Matt, it was, really diving into and buying into the process, which he had a really hard time mentally with. He the idea of like having structure, being told what to do, there's all little nuances with each of them. And I would tell you that games athletes in general, especially at the top, like when you take the top 10 or 15 males and females, the difference between them, say, on the podium and not is so razor thin, and it's mental. There's obviously going to be physical limitations in terms of like injuries or like, deficiencies. But I truly believe, in what I've watched in here, is that when somebody's deficient in something, the only limitation they have there is their mind, whether they can or not, and they're willing to put in the work to do it to get better at it. Jason Hopper's proved it. He's had some monumental gaps in his game that are strengths now. Matt Fraser is the biggest proof of that. He was a weightlifter that couldn't, get his heart rate to 150 without feeling like he was going to die. He is the fittest man in history now. Sure. So, that's literally, every sport is that mental, as right? And I think a lot of people see them as such a gifted physical application. They're not. Like, all those guys are very much level on talent. There's always generational talents that come through in those situations, but those guys are all very close. Is LeBron James that much more talented than, the third starter on his team? No, there's a difference there, like time, experience, but he's more mentally buttoned up than maybe anybody that's ever played the sport, right?
Yeah,
so
that's right. He's done it longer. He's done it better than almost anybody.
Isn't that such a big part of it too? Is like, part of the mental game that I think people don't pay enough attention to is your willingness to learn. What learning is failing, right? Yeah. So I'm willing to then not make that mistake again by, either, addressing it through my training or work that I need to do to get better at something to not have that failure. But that learning process is so important in all of this type of stuff,
So what's the biggest mentor? I just wrote a book called Keep Telling Yourself. And
Can't wait to read it.
It's all about the narratives we tell ourselves and the power it has over your life. Like, we just are nothing more than a collection of stories we tell ourselves. What do you think are the the stories that those top athletes, those tip of the spear athletes, are telling themselves comparative to the people that are struggling, the people that aren't, or maybe not even in a setting like this, but just in their everyday life. What's the different narratives?
Well, I think, yeah, that's a very deep question, truly, because I think, again, it's very unique to each individual. Like, I think that, I mean, the difference is I believe that it's vulnerability. I believe people that are high achievers are willing to be vulnerable and fail and look silly in the process. I mean, I can relate to this. It's like, even in a CrossFit gym when I first came in, it's like, I didn't want to do things that I was weak at. I had to overcome that to be my best me and then be where I'm at today. I can't not be willing to try to do a pull-up thinking, well, I'm going to fail and somebody's going to see me fail. Yeah. I think that's the biggest society limitation that exists. That's like a one common thread is that, people don't want to look silly or fail.
The public failing.
Yes. Yeah. People don't want people to see that. And, guys like, and by the way, that's one of the hurdles Matt overcame. He really struggled with that early in his career. And the minute he was able to overcome that was the minute he became the most dominant player in a sport history, right? So it's I think that is probably the most common thread we all have within us is fear, and willingness to sort of, put yourself out and fail so that you can move forward, learn, and grow.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the crazy thing is most people aren't afraid of failing. They're afraid of failing publicly. When I fail in private, like nobody knows. I don't beat myself up about it at all. Right? I'm doing a workout and I can't do a pull up. Like I don't feel bad in the moment because nobody sees it.
Right.
But the minute I'm next to Matt Frazier and I can't do a pull up, I feel like I'm like, oh my God, he looks at the guy's looking at me like I can't even do a pull up. So this idea, how do you get people to fail publicly? How do you get them? How do you get a Brooke Wells? I guess they're already into it, but how do you get a non-Brooke Wells? Let's talk about a non-Matt Frazier, non-Brooke Wells. How do you just get an everyday person to lean into publicly failing?
I can give you how I learned this, and I learned it in a CrossFit gym, and it was, either that or I would have got spit out. How do you get people to learn that? I think it's community. I think it's, being around, people that can help you with that, facilitate that, like-minded people that, have overcome that. I came to a CrossFit gym with fear, doubt, insecurity, like all the package, like I would, didn't want to look silly. I was a college athlete, played Division I sports. I'm like, failing to me in front of a crowd of people in a workout was like scary to me. Right. Yeah. But what, we did a workout today, there was toes to bar in that workout. I did V-ups. Yeah. I can do toes to bar. I can do a lot of them. There's my ego already, but it's like literally, I don't care. It's like, I just want to get a good workout in. And what I learned is by in the community, in the fitness community, and specifically in a CrossFit gym that I joined, that was all you needed to do on a daily basis, and it taught me to overcome that stuff. And when I failed, somebody would come over and help me. I mean, you just, it's people, honestly, it's getting around the right people, and getting in the right environment. And by the way, all I said there is putting myself out, you know this, you've run a million marathons now. Yeah. The hardest one was the first one. It's like, that's where you're just a bottled up bundle of tangled knots of fear, doubt, and insecurity. And when you take that step, you learn I can do anything, and I learned that in a gym, even though I had so many experiences along the way. I had a sad athletic experience in college, but I produced that because I didn't put in the work. And so, think about all of that burden on me now. I'm going into this next phase of my life and I've failed, and do I learn from it or not? And it created a lot of doubt and insecurity, but I evolved a lot and I grew up a lot in the CrossFit community.
Yeah, I've learned that a ton in CrossFit. I was so against CrossFit. I have a president of my company, Morgan, who runs all of my companies, who her and her husband own a huge CrossFit gym where we live, and she would say, Chad, stop running, don't stop running, but add weightlifting. And I'm like, I'm not doing that CrossFit thing. And I'd try it for a couple of days, and I'm like, that's not me, I'm a runner. And it was really more of that public bailing because I felt so confident in the running, and I was going to step in front of a room for people that was going to make a fool of myself in. And then when I went to that first class, I did private lessons. So I said, I'll do private lessons. And the only reason I wanted to do private lessons is because then I wouldn't fail publicly.
Right.
And then I started going to classes, and the classes are 10 times better than any private lesson I've ever been to, because the community. And what I realized, even today, you know, I'm working out next to Matt Frazier. He's doing toe to bars. I'm doing like some sort of like assisted like knee raise. Like it was nothing like toe to bar.
You're doing you.
I'm doing me.
Yeah.
And at no point was I worried about Matt Frazier looking over going, this dude can't even do a toe to bar. And at the end of the workout, he's like, man, he gave me a high five or a fist, and he was like, man, way not to give up, way to keep going. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, there was no ridicule. There was no like, and this is the world's fittest man working out next to me, and it makes you feel seen, heard, and valued. That hey, it's not about me competing with you. It's about you competing with you.
Think about that too. Like, you know, running. You've been in the running community.
Yeah.
You know, you go run a marathon by yourself, and you feel really shitty after 20 miles.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to be like, I'll get the next one.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
There's the beauty of like community, group fitness. Matt, honestly, he like absolutely adores helping people build love and, you know, routine around this, you know, fitness training in their lifestyle, because he knows how much it's helped him. And that's not like, you know, earn financial freedom, win world championships.
Yeah.
You know, his dad's had 2 open heart surgeries, and this has saved his life. His mom does, you know, Flagship, one of our programs, on a daily basis. He has a neighbor that lost 100 pounds that he worked him out in his basement when he was the fittest man on earth. And he knows how hard it is because he just did the workout. And quite frankly, I did the workout with you. I'd have quit that workout if I was doing that by myself in the garage at the pace we were going at, because it hurt.
This morning?
Yeah.
Oh.
It hurt.
I was like, is anybody else dying here?
And that's
but that feeling of like I'm supported gives you an extra push, gives you an extra gear that you might not have had.
He texted me last night, like, we have worked out more together in the last year than I think we had all the years prior, because, you know, we're just more relatable in terms of how we apply our fitness now.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's the daily medicine. It's like, you know, I need someone beside me too to really get myself pushed, you know, and hold me accountable. I've done a good job learning how to be accountable to myself. Trust me on that. But there's definitely days, and people will relate to this, where I'm in my garage doing a workout. I have a garage gym, and I quit because it sucks, it hurts, it's cold. I got all the excuses. You know, when I grab a buddy, there's no chance that's happening.
No chance.
Zero chance. And he texted me last night. He's like, man, I need to work out. And I was like, let's do it together. He's like, you know, he said after, he's like, I would have never done that in my basement last night. You know,
the miracle isn't that people finish. The miracle is that people ever even start.
Isn't it?
Do you know what I mean? Like, people are like, I can't believe you finished the marathon. I'm like, there is no miracle in me finishing a marathon or finishing a 50 mile or finishing an Ironman. The miracle is that I get to the start line, because everything in you wants to tell you you don't need it, don't do it, it's not a big deal. And that keeps people from even putting themselves to the start line. But once I get to the start line, and this is a metaphor for life, not just running. If I start something, if I have the courage to start it, I'm going to have the discipline to finish it. The problem is most people don't have the courage to start it.
Could not agree more. You and I have talked a bit about marathoning. I have done a few. You know, I've done Boston 3 times, and I think you said something to me when we were having dinner one night about how you were doing it for all the wrong reasons when you started. And,
all for ego.
You know, and I mean, I totally related to that, you know, when you were describing that, and it's, you know.
It felt empty. It didn't, like, when you do something, you do the right thing for the wrong reason, the feeling you get is like, I got that medal the first time. And I felt really good, and I wore the medal around like I was Flavor Flav for the whole week. I'm like, I wore it to church. I'm not taking this shit off, right? Because it was all about this need to be seen as, and letting people know that at 40 years old or 42 years old, whatever I was, I ran a marathon. But I didn't get any better in the process, and it didn't change my life. It just gave me more ego.
You got healthier. Well, you know what you enjoyed is the journey, the process. And that's, you know, it takes a while. You'll relate to this. It takes a long, that is, I've said cliche now 3 times. It is probably the most cliche thing, you know, buying into the process.
Yeah.
And I say it that way because I don't think people really understand that. What I really enjoy about life now is the, you know, 4 months I trained for Boston, not running Boston.
That's the exact same here.
You know, and I've, you know, on paper failed Boston. I tore my calf. I finished, didn't achieve the time that I set out to, but I was fulfilled because I did it. I got to the start line and I was ready to run the time that I wanted to. I know I was. I just got hurt, you know? So it's the same here in business. And man, every day I get to show up and there are thousands of people around the world that rely on us for that, you know, is the process. And it's, you know, people need targets. We all need goals. We all need things to like look at to get to so that it inspires our training. But I've never been more in a position in my entire life where I just want to wake up every day and like feel good, get in a nice barrel, like do a workout, be around good people, help grow our business together, help more people globally. And there's no real like target or like Super Bowl I'm chasing with that. It's actually kind of fun, honestly, for the, you know, and I don't know that would be like any sort of like written structure that people would distribute as a formula for success. I just, you know, the process, and I mean, you've done 50 marathons, you relate to the process. Yeah. I love it. You know, so do I. I mean, like, I love today because I know I got better today training this morning, and like I want to see how much better I am the next day. I do the same thing, or like a week from now. I just love that.
It's the same. I felt the same way. I felt, you know, the training for London, when I did London this year, was the best training I'd ever done in my life. I ate healthy. I hit the workouts. I hit the times. I got a great, amazing coach, Mario. And like I felt it was so good seeing the improvements on those 4 a.m. runs and seeing my split time. When I got to the marathon was just like it was like a victory lap. It had nothing. The marathon was over in 3 hours and 20 minutes. The training was 8 months, 9 months of nothing but like 4 a.m.s and tough decisions. And I got better. It didn't matter what happened at the marathon. Now, I was certainly shooting for a time, but I believe in divorcing the outcome, fall in love with the process. And this idea of the process made me better. And I think that achievement without betterment is solely for the ego. So if I achieve something, somebody could go out and run a marathon today, and that's what I did on the first marathon. I didn't train. I didn't eat. I didn't change anything about me. I just showed up. And I ran 26 miles, and it was miserable. And it took me 6 hours, but I had a medal. So I achieved something, but I wasn't better, and it was solely for the ego. When you have betterment first, you will achieve so much more, and the achievement doesn't even seem as important anymore.
You're setting yourself up for failure the other way, too. I mean, I've many times taken that path and not been able to succeed. You're physically limited, or you're not prepared. I relate a lot to that. Yeah, I mean, the process is, I guess for anybody that, you know, would look at that and sort of snark at it, because maybe I did when I was a 25-year-old kid, I think we would both say you're going to learn really at some point in your life that if you're not willing to look at that and buy into that and enjoy that somehow, or find a way to enjoy it, success is harder. I mean, unless you're just some brainiac, super talented that doesn't have has a lot of things better physically and mentally than I do. I mean, without that, I wouldn't be anywhere.
At some point, I think there's a proverb that says, "Be humble, or you're about ready to be." Right, and at some point, you're going to be humbled.
That's the truth.
Real fast, really, really fast. So, in this super, do you see your superpower as connection?
I do. I really do. Connection, people, 100%. I get out of bed in the morning charged up to, be on Zooms all day and be interacting with people, be in person as much as possible, and help people be their best. And I just have a unique role that allows me to do that more than most. But 100%. Yeah, I think it's, connection and communication and people.
What role does faith play in that?
Faith? Yeah, it's a really good question. I was born, grew up Catholic. I went to a Catholic high school, and I went to all boys school, and I went to Catholic university. And I struggled with faith. I'm in a pretty good place overall with it now. Not necessarily, I'm doing it my way, which sometimes can be a trap and a bad approach. But I believe and a lot of things that, you know, the Catholic faith teaches, I've just really struggled with the organization at times,
Yeah.
you know, personally, which is, you know, I think was like I look back at it now and I'm, you know, I wish I was more mature and processed it better earlier.
So do I. Yeah.
Because, you know, I think it's just, people need to have faith. They need to believe in things. You know, they need to, you know, we all need to think that we have somebody else helping us on a day-to-day basis that's sort of ever present. From my perspective,
Yeah.
what I think my faith has improved off of is I've been able to travel the world the last 10 years and be, you know, connected to at one point or another virtually to every faith that exists. You know, I've been a ton of time in the Middle East, and, you know, I've been literally to every continent, and it's just such a diverse world. And, you know, there's so many common threads with all of our faiths, by the way, which I think people don't realize. Yeah. And I just see how much it helps so many people globally that, you know, I got reinterested in more passionately on a trip to Saudi Arabia. I'm Catholic, you know, you're talking about a totally different what people would think is a polar opposite faith. There's so many common threads. And I just was with some people that really use that as a powerful tool with being their best. And, you know, I mean, they were encouraging me to maybe think about what their faith looked like, but it just reinvigorated me around my faith, honestly. And I want my kids to grow up and believe. And so I'm not like into all the traditions.
Yeah.
But I talk to God, you know, occasionally, and, you know, I believe that person listens. And
the thing is, what's interesting about when you talk about faith, and, you know, and not even forget religion, just faith in something. Faith and belief in something. Mm-hmm. And if people could have faith and belief in themselves, that would be a great start right there. Faith and belief in yourself. That's a big
step, though, isn't it?
That you just, because I don't think you can believe in something else if you don't believe in yourself. I can't have faith in God. I have a great relationship with God, but in order to make that relationship with God as good as it possibly can be, it has to start with me having faith and belief in myself. Because if I don't have faith in myself, then there's no way I can believe in a God. And so how do you get people? How do you get those amazing athletes? How do you get your daughter? How do you get your son to have faith in themselves?
Yeah, I mean, it's something I'm incredibly proud of at home, because, you know, I think taking my experience as a child, and, you know, and I was raised really well, and thinking of ways I can improve upon that. And, you know, I think that I grew up in a generation of, you know, motivation was at times tough love, and, you know, people can, you know, like my father saw things in me and he pushed me to pursue them because he wanted me to realize my full potential. And that can, you know, that created an interesting relationship at times. I could not be more grateful that that's the way I was raised, you know, in my life. But, you know, I think I can, you know, take, you know, good ingredients from how he did that with me and do a little bit of a better job and build confidence and belief. And it's not like, I think some people would look at that as soft at times, and it's not like, you know, it's just encouraging, you know, kids to take my kids to take my experience and build off of it and learn from it, and hopefully not make the same mistakes, you know. And it's where does faith play in and all that? I have never taken a moment to say you have to with faith. My kids have organically become people of faith through their experiences. I never made them go to church. I never, you know, we put them in CCD, and, you know, if they complained, honestly, I'd have been the parent that have been like, yeah, you're good. Like, you don't need to do this. And that's never been the case. And I think they found community there. Like, they both grew up and went to Catholic private schools, which are fantastic communities that encourage people. Yeah. You know, they help people overcome all these things what we're talking about: fear, doubt, insecurity.
And now your daughter's in Alabama, which is heavily faith-based.
It is, and she's thriving. And you know, I learned a lot about faith. Like, and I know you know this about me, I'm 13 or 14 years sober, and, you know, that was sort of, you know, I needed to stop drinking, and I think that was a point at which my faith was challenged at its most. And I see where God plays into my life because of the miracle that I am today. And it was the only person I could talk to for a long period of time that I think would listen, because I was just in a bad, dark place. Yeah. And my kids got to watch me go through some of that, you know, and they got to watch me, fight, believe, have faith that, I could do this. There was a higher power that would help me with that. Without, with doing it my way. And that's, I guess that's the only way I've encouraged it with them is like,
Do it their way.
It sounds stubborn to do things your way, but I want them to be independent when it comes to things like faith.
And you only get, everybody's doing this life for the first time. You only get one life. It's not no dress rehearsal. So do it your way.
Isn't it like the number one thing we all say on a constant basis? I find myself even more today. It's like, if I only knew then what I know today,
Hindsight is so.
And as a parent, how hard is it to not say like, here, don't do that. Like the kids got to experience some things on their own.
We have to be the safety net, not the parachute. We got to make sure they don't hit rock bottom, but we can't hold them up either. We got to let them fall at their pace.
It's hard.
Really, really hard. Yeah. It's interesting. If you were a woman, I would ask you this question. If you were a mother, I would ask you the question of, how do you do it? How do you travel so much, and how do you and still have a relationship with your kids? It's such like nobody ever asks a father that question, but I'm going to ask you that question as a father, as somebody who travels even more than I do. Yeah. You're always on the road. You're always doing something somewhere. How do you still balance fatherhood in that?
Well, I truly believe that what I do makes me my happiest, and then it makes me my best at home. And I can objectively measure my relationships before and after, I've started to, heavily be in hot pursuit of what I'm doing now. And my relationships have just thrived. My kids are proud of me. They see that I work hard. Yeah. You can relate to this. It hurts often, which is homesick, you know?
Oh yeah.
I love being home. As much as I love being, in front of people and helping people be their best, and really getting to do what I do on a daily basis. But, you know what? They understand it, and they're grateful for me for who I am, honestly. Like, they've just accepted it in me. Like, there were times where I was imbalanced, and, my wife has just been a really good, general for me in that. Just to be like, hey, dude, you're a little off right now. Like, you got to spend a little more time here, or like your kids need you. There's a big game coming up. Like, I know you said you were going to go to Dubai for this. Like, you need to stay home. And so I've had, I have good people around me that have helped me with that.
Haven't gotten to spend time with your wife, who's a rock star lawyer, has her own career. I'm saying you struck gold there. Isn't
it like, the whole like balance feature is like, I don't even know how to describe that. I don't have any of it. You don't have any of it. But like, what is balance for me is
well, I think a lot of
happiness.
People, I think a lot of people think balance is equal. Balance isn't equal. I can be balanced on one foot, doesn't mean I'm equal. And so it's balance means being where your feet are. And, just being present in that space. When I'm with my daughters, I'm with my daughters. And you've seen, we've been together at Alabama games. We've been together at dinner. We've been together here. And so it's where I am is where what's most important at that very moment. This is where I have to be. Because to your point, when I'm my happiest, I can be the father I want to be. When I'm at my happiest and doing what fulfills me, what God put me on this earth for, I can then show up proud and fulfilled of what I'm doing with my children.
Yeah, that you nail it on the head. Like I think that, and you've experienced this through kids leaving to go to school. I was lamenting my daughter leaving. Our relationship was solid before, but what you're describing is she is the happiest I've ever seen her. Our relationship's never been any better. It's just proof to me that that's the formula for success. It's not necessarily, in the same place at all times. The connection is, people being, very fulfilled and happy. My son and, my relationship with my son has improved because of that. You just have more perspective, but I've struggled most with that in my career, am I doing the right thing? But I think the fact that I'm willing to ask myself that question on a daily basis means that, I'm always going to have sort of a barometer for, whether I am or not. And I have people around me to help me with that. But like, I'm aware of it for sure. And, but I wouldn't change anything, honestly. Like, I think people might think that's crazy. Like, I'm away like you are, like 150 days a year. It's like, I wouldn't change it because, we have a great life and my kids love me and I love them. And we have, everybody's really happy around me and they're super happy and thriving. So something went right along the way.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I wouldn't change anything. There are days that you're in the thick of it and you're like, oh man, it really would be nice to be sleeping in my own bed, to not a Marriott for the 180th night. But I wouldn't change any of it because you don't get to rip out one chapter of the book and have the same ending.
True.
And so like you rip out one chapter, the whole story changes. And I love my story. I love the struggles, the pitfalls, the highs, the lows. I love the good decisions. I love the bad decisions. You walk down my office hallway and there's 3 pictures on the wall in our office building going down to my office. And the first picture is me as a kid, very, very sulky, very miserable, like in my baseball uniform, just hating life. And there's a plaque under it and says who I was. And then you walk a couple feet down and it's me crossing the finish line of one of my marathons, full smile, ear to ear, chest puffed out, really loving who I saw in the mirror and who I see in that picture and understand is who I am. And then you walk a couple feet further down, there's a picture of my shadow of me running one early morning and it says who I'm becoming. And I have the same amount of love for every single version of those. And so you can't rip out what made those versions of you and still love those versions of you. So to me, it's about having gratitude for the whole part of you, not just some of you.
Makes the journey fun along the way, doesn't it?
No question. I got 2 more questions for you. And then what's great is I can spend all weekend hanging out with you in Alabama this weekend.
Yes, sir.
And I'm wondering, are we doing a workout with Jason Hopper on Saturday in Tuscaloosa?
I mean, I think that can easily be arranged. Let's work that out. I don't know what time the game's at. I should probably look.
2:30.
Oh yeah,
we definitely got an early morning workout then, right?
Done.
Jason Hopper, me, you.
He's going to be a little less understanding of you and I doing V-ups. He's in the thick of it.
Yeah.
I mean, he is.
Can I take him for a 10-mile run first?
He'd go and he'd
probably
enter it as if he was the world champion of a 10-mile run, which is exactly what you need to be that successful. So
that's what I want.
I love about him. Yeah.
That's what I want.
I'm excited for you to meet him. He's a special guy.
Yeah, Tuscaloosa, we're coming for you. CrossFit Tuscaloosa, we're coming for you.
He played football at Clemson.
Oh, this is even better. This is getting even better.
Yeah, he was a receiver at Clemson.
Yeah, I'm gonna hit him up with the Alabama shirt. Maybe an Alabama shirt.
He asked me when my daughter got in and I was down at the Georgia game, I got a text from him and he said, "Can I go to the Iron Bowl?" And I was like, "Well, yeah."
Yeah.
He was like, "My dream has I have a list of games that 4 or 5 games that I want to and need to and will go to."
The whiteout.
He's like, "That one's up there." He's like,
and it's going to be a big game. So, all right, 2 last questions. Yeah. 50, 60 years from from today, when you leave this earth, what do you want your contribution to have been?
I want, well, first and foremost, I want to be remembered as a great family man and dad. And it's funny, people will listen to that and hear, I heard a clip from Dana White recently that was so eloquent around that and so genuine, and it just resonated with me, and it's how I feel. Like I don't, I care, but I don't focus on anything more. If that at the end of the day was all I was, my kids thought I was just a cool and a great dad, and my wife, had a great time, and I was a great husband, through our process together, then I won.
That's pretty good.
For me, and I think the same goes for what I do on a daily basis in business is, I just want people to, think I was a really good guy and I contributed to their success, and I think it's equally as important, both, I don't want to go about that any other way but the right way, and I want people to respect me because I deserve that respect, and so I just, I want when I'm gone, and I think, it's funny, I think we all probably think of these things. It's like, you used to play basketball in the driveway and make the shot to win the NBA championship. Yeah. Now I think about what's it like when I die,
Yeah, right.
That's the evolution. Yeah. And that's
as you start to get older, there's 2 types of virtues in the world. There's the career virtues, and that's what you'll say about your retirement party, and then there's eulogy virtues, and that's what they'll say about your funeral. And as you get older, the career virtues mean less, the eulogy virtues mean more.
I totally agree. But I mean, my career virtues, I hope, are really tied to the other side.
Yeah.
You know,
When those two intertwine
Yeah.
is where I think you have fulfillment in life. And for me, I'm blessed to say that my career virtues and my eulogy virtues are very intertwined.
It's
And I'll
great.
be known for both. All right. Last question. Tonight, after spending time with you and breaking bread with you and being with you and having you in my circle, which I'm extremely grateful for,
As am I. Yes.
I'm going to pray for you tonight. What should I pray for?
Whew. Celtics NBA championship? No, I'm kidding.
Yes, that is on my bucket list, by the way, is a Celtics game.
We're done. We're done.
I'm
We
just
can
letting
get
you
done.
know that a Celtics game at the Garden
Yes.
is on my
That's
on
easy.
my bucket list.
We can get that done. Yeah, you know, what I would want anybody to think of me in, you know, from a prayer or a thought perspective on a daily basis is that I just continue to have the strength to be my best for everybody around me. Like I literally, if have any sort of doubt or like moments, you know, when you wake up, you're a little tired or anything, is like, you know, can I? You know, that often, you know, I always prove that I can by just taking that first step forward and starting like you described. But, you know, I just always want to have the strength and confidence to be, you know, present for the people around me.
Yeah, I love that. We didn't spend a ton of time talking about Hard Work Pays Off because I think Hard Work Pays Off is an amazing brand. It's an amazing company. But if you want to know the character of a company, look at the character of the person running the company.
Thank you.
And I really want people to be able to see behind the rig and behind the curtain of who Matt O'Keefe is. One of the most selfless, amazing human beings I've ever met. Thankfully, able to call him a friend. Check him out on social media. Connect with them. Sign up for you doing this amazing 100-day challenges right now,
Yeah,
free to the public.
Very cool.
12,000 people come in and sign up for the community of just crushing the last 100 days of the year.
Very cool. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, join us. Jump in. We're for anyone, but
Yeah. Hard work pays off. Hard work pays off. Check it out. Matt O'Keefe. Thanks, brother.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, man.
Appreciate you. Good to see you.
Likewise.